One,
Go.
we're live there. Wait for my clock to.
Hello, students and friends. My name is Chris Wager. I'm with the Central Asian Productivity Research Center. Welcome to our 2021 Autumn Lecture Series. At this time, please let me introduce Dr. John Kalaras. Dr. Kalaras has been a professor for 42 years. In 1999, UNESCO chose him as Professor of the Year. In 2005, President George W. Bush chose him to serve on the President's Business Advisory Council. If President Bush and UNESCO found John interesting and informative, I'm sure we will too. Dr. Kalaras, if you please.
Thank you, Christopher. Hello, everyone. To all of our guests around the world, welcome. Today's presentation is all about quality. My famous statement about quality, or my motto, basically is taste, quality, and success, and you will want more of it. Well, time is of essence, as they say, so might as well let me share a screen with you and proceed with the presentation, because we don't have any time to waste, and of course, quality is all about not wasting anything. So, as Christopher said, there it's me and my name, and a founder of a university here, the Ariston Institute of Chicago. So having said that, my idol, the person that I've been following for decades now, is an ancient philosopher, Socrates, who basically said, I cannot teach you anything. And I feel the same way too. All I can do, he said, is I can make you think, ask you questions, and you take it from that point on. You have options to take, and you make the decisions. So basically, I'm going to do the same thing with you today. I'll present a few things, not in order to teach you, but in order to give you food for thought. Having said that, let me clarify something. If you folks are expecting a crystal ball to solve all of your problems today, that's not going to happen. However, if you're looking for workable techniques that we have tested and proven successful and effective over the years, you are in the right place. So, having said that, we got to realize, we do, and I hope you will too, that different people look at things differently, which means they learn differently. Look at these two folks right there. One of them, they look at the same object, and one of them sees 3, the other sees 4. Look at this next picture. Again, these two folks are looking for the same object. One of them sees it as a 6, the other as a 9. Why do I bring this up? Because people look at things differently, therefore they learn differently. And throughout the day, I will try to, throughout the presentation that we have today, I'll try to present and accommodate just about all different learning styles. We have, as you know, the auditory, the visual, the kinesthetic, the interpersonal, the learner. So we'll try most of them. So our topic for the day, quality. And as I said, I think it's a very profound statement. Taste, quality, and success, and you will want more of it. The information that I'll share with you today comes from my book, Train the Trainer, which also has a workbook. Here's my book, and here's my workbook. And I have the workbook because academicians write books, but business people and practitioners also complement a book with a workbook that shows the how to and why. So basically, that's what I've done in this manuscript, in this book. However, along with the book, I've also authored a number of business programs, all about, some of them about quality, and the ones that I will address today are the 6 that pertain to quality. And for the ones who are familiar with the terminology, they have taken, in naming these training courses, they took the terminology from the karate or karate, however you want to call it, terminology. So they have, as you see there, the white belt, they have the yellow belt, they have green belt, they have black belt, they have master black belt, and finally, for executives, they have the championship belt, which is the maroon color. So basically, that's what we'll be talking about today in reference to quality. Okay. With quality, you will improve your productivity, efficiency in business, effectiveness, reliability, customer satisfaction, and customer loyalty. We will take time later on today to differentiate between customer satisfaction and customer loyalty. As a matter of fact, I've limited my presentation today with less slides in comparison to what we did the last time, simply because I want to analyze certain topics in more detail, and this is one of them: customer satisfaction versus client loyalty. Let me just say up front, a satisfied customer is still looking. A loyal customer, a loyal client will never leave you. And we'll show you how to create loyal clients. Having said that, I want you to realize that by implementing quality, there are benefits that several different groups enjoy. And we have benefits to the customers, benefits to the organization that provides the service or products, benefits to the employees, and definitely benefits to the society. And I'll take a few minutes to analyze all four categories. Starting with benefits to customers. Higher quality products and services provide consistency. When you always provide quality, along with quality comes consistency. Next, you have reliability. When the products are consistent and the service or product is reliable, the customers now know that if I go to this company, I will always find the same product, I will always have the same service. Retention of customers is another benefit if you provide quality. People love quality, so they will come back, and that's where retention comes into play. And of course, that is one of the reasons, one of the ways to create loyalty between the organization and the customers. Now, obviously, I did not exhaust all benefits, but I just gave you the most important ones or the most common ones. So let's look into the benefits to the organization, to the company, in other words, okay? Now, dependable products and services due to quality provide consistent performance. So the employees now know what to do day in and day out. They diminish problems or different issues that they have, production issues that they have in the company. They have continuous improvement because to maintain the level of quality that the industry demands, the competition imposes, you have to continuously try to improve. And that is another big segment, continuous improvement, that we address with our clients. And of course, that builds a competitive advantage. By providing quality, now you compete against your other competitors and other companies in the industry. And of course, hopefully you will have the upper hand. Obviously, providing services of quality or products of quality, that will help your company grow because customers will return, customers will come back to you, and of course, you'll make more profits. Therefore, you may also expand if you wish. Additional benefits to the organization may be higher profitability because of the return customers, as we said, okay? Enhanced shareholders' value. Now the company grows, the value per share of stock grows, so now you have enhanced stakeholders' value. Your stock could have been worth, let's say, $5 before, or €5, or whatever currency you have, wherever you're at. Now it is 7, 8, 10, 15, or whatsoever. It also improves innovation because when you perform at a level of quality, when you're continuously improving, chances are that you will probably find better ways, more effective and efficient ways to do the things that you're doing, which improves innovation. Now, improved innovation will probably give you higher productivity. Okay, the higher the productivity, the higher the output in relation to input, so most likely the higher the profits. And of course, now the market will be improved. The market you're serving will be satisfied. They'll be happy. So you improve your image. I go to this company, for instance, and I always find the same reliable product or service in the same quality, sometimes even better than the time before, because due to innovation, they enhanced it. So I'll always go back. And of course, all this leads to higher profits and profitability. Excuse me. In the last presentation, my colleague and distinguished professor and academician, excuse me, Paul Prabhakar, referred to profits and profitability. If you remember, folks, obviously he did an excellent job in presenting it, but people asked and called me with a few questions on profits and profitability. Let me just highlight the following. Profits are the net difference between revenues and costs and expenses. It is a dollar nominal value. You have $20 revenue, you have $15 costs and expenses, you have profit of $5. Profitability is the relationship between profits and investment, or profits and assets, or profits and sales. In other words, if you brought in our example that I just mentioned, $20 in profits, in revenue, and your profit goes $5, that is 1/4 or 25%. Profitability is expressed as a percent of something, either investment, assets, sales, and the like, where profits is the net dollar amount by subtracting revenue costs from revenues. I hope I didn't cross any lines here by getting into Paul's area, but as I said, he did an excellent job, but I got a few questions on that from some of you. And of course, the final benefit is reduced costs. Obviously, if you have higher profits, chances are that the costs are reduced also. Well, now let's look into the benefits to the employees. How do employees benefit if a company performs at a level of quality is the issue? Okay, well, quality brings the customers back. Therefore, you got more sales, you got more profits. The customers are happy, so they will probably recommend you to others. And now you create loyal employees and customers because, again, the loyalty, folks, is not only between the company and its clients, it's also between the company and the employees. The employees now have jobs. Since customers are returning and the company is making money, employees are happy. They're receiving their guaranteed salary. They probably get some benefits. So they're loyal to the company and to the organization. Now, obviously, if the company is profitable and growing, as we said before, remember we had the word expansion there, the company may be expanding, chances are that you will probably hire more people. Okay. And of course, the employee turnover, which is a main problem with many companies, will be minimized, low or possibly non-existent. Employee turnover, folks, is a real killer to an organization. For the ones who may not be familiar with the term, employee turnover refers to how long an employee stays in a company until he or she leaves and then another employee comes in. And then after a while, he or she leaves and then another employee replaces them. That is the employee turnover. That has to be low, minimal, or close to zero with every company. On the other hand, since we are on this subject, so you know, employee turnover must be minimized. However, inventory turnover should be maximized. The more times you turn over the inventory, the better off you are. Again, My colleague Paul Brabhacker also referred to that, if you remember the last time, by showing you how many pennies was the profit between selling price and costs. And by selling it more times, you're becoming even more profitable, if you remember that example. If not, either ask me later or go back to him, because that's his subject and he is an expert in that, and he'll be delighted to clarify it again. So thus far, we had benefits to three categories. Continuing with employees, okay, excuse me, a more profitable company, folks, leads to job security for the people, okay? People don't have to live because they know that their job will be there tomorrow, the day after, and the year after. That definitely improves employee morale, because now the employees know my company is successful, my company is profitable, so I'm fine with the job that I have. I don't need to look for another job in another company, so the employee morale is improved. And definitely that enhances the shareholders' value, as we said earlier. It improves innovation and productivity as well. Finally, let's look into the benefits to society. Now, somebody will probably think, if a company performs at a level of quality and enjoys all these benefits, does society benefit from it? Believe it or not, yes, it does. And here are some key elements. Business stay open. You don't see those closed doors. We're out of business. We moved someplace else. Okay. Here, that sign, sorry, we're closed. Okay. Business remain open. People are employed. When people are employed, they bring a paycheck home, they bring money home. So now the family can buy stuff, which means they can buy things, right? They can buy more food, they can buy vacations, they can buy more clothing, they can go to the cleaners, they can buy furniture, they can buy computers, which means the business in the area are also benefiting, thus flourishing as well. So when your company is doing well, there is a benefit, a reciprocal benefit to other businesses as well. And of course, all people are happy when business is thriving, okay? And there you see the happy faces, and people say, I love my job. In addition to that, now there's taxes that will be collected by the government. So now the government hopefully will use the money properly to build roads, streets, schools, food stamps, whatever the case may be. Because again, folks, it's not only the taxes from the payroll, but it is also the taxes from the sales, the retail taxes that companies charge an individual when he or she buys something. Now, with some countries, the tax is not added at the time of sale as it is here in the States. With some other taxes, we have the VAT, the value added tax, and it's included in the price. But again, the government gets portion of that and taxes are collected, and that's another benefit. And of course, when taxes are collected, you now have more police on the streets. So now crime may very well be reduced as another benefit to society. So let's summarize this. We discuss the concept here was by providing at a level of quality, whether it is service or product or both, everybody, all stakeholders, as we say, internal and external, employees, company, society, and others, and customers, of course, are benefiting from it. I hope you will agree with this. And let me see if I have any questions here. See, no question yet. Okay. So feel free, by the way, to ask your questions on your YouTube where you're following, okay, or attending, and we'll be delighted to answer them. Okay. Now, when you perform at any level, hopefully at a level of quality, it is important that you measure how you are doing. Measuring quality is vitally important. And let me just say this, folks. If you're not measuring, all you have is an opinion. So you got to measure where you are today and where you went or where you want to be tomorrow and how well you achieve that. I have on the pictorials different elements there, and one of them on the right-hand side refers to baking, right? So people who bake, let's say, a pastry or a cake, they measure. If you don't measure, all you have, as I said, is just an opinion. And performing without measuring is unacceptable. And of course, measuring without a target is also useless. So basically what we do in our quality standards, we say, let's identify the level of quality today. How do you identify that? You look at the complaints that you receive. And now let's say we have 15% complaints. Well, now your target becomes to bring that 15% of complaining customers down to 10. You start implementing techniques and methods to provide better product, better service, better quality. And how much did you allow yourself to improve that? Let's say a month. By the end of the month, you look at those complaints again. Did you reach your target? Did your number of complaints go down to 10%? Then your measurement is accurate and what you're doing is correct as well. In any event, all I'm trying to stress here is the importance of measuring so you know where you're headed, okay? Now, whenever we implement quality, folks, as in all cases, we address the what, why, how, who, and when, okay? Let me elaborate on that a little. The what refers to defining what is it you want to achieve. And of course, quality, folks, should be a never-ending journey. It is not something that we do for a month and then we relax, or for a year and then we stop. No, it is something that you do continuously throughout your life. As it says there, it is a marathon with an unknown finish line. Okay? Any activity that does not add value to the customer should be eliminated, and waste is one of the issues that the quality concept and the quality philosophy addresses, and we will address that shortly here as well. So, how do you know that you have quality? A quality guru that I had the fortune to be with by name Art Nielsen. He is the person who found the AC Nielsen Ratings Company. It is in 156 countries around the world. It is a type of company that you may not remember, you may not know the name AC Nielsen Ratings, but it is the company that says the Super Bowl today was watched by 10 million people. This commercial was very successful, and it was 500,000 people watched it. In this debate by the politicians, this debate was watched by so many, so they have statistics as to what goes on various important events. Art Nielsen invented that company. And one of the things that he told me during the lunches that we had and discussions that we had over the years was, John, how do you define quality? And me, the professor, obviously started giving him definitions. And he says, forget all that. This is all academic. Let me show you how we determine quality. And he shared with me this very profound statement, which I have internalized and I followed ever since. He said, you know that you have quality if the customer returns and the product doesn't. Think about it for a moment. You know that you have quality when the customer returns and the product doesn't. Meaning the customer comes back for more and the product does not return because it's not a defect. Okay, it's a good product. So when you have a good product and the customer is happy, the customer returns and the product doesn't. And that was his profound definition of quality, and I've been following it all along. Well, after the what, we have the why. The why actually, folks, is the empowerment. It is the motivational aspect that tells you why you should be performing at a level of quality. How gives you the step-by-step approach. Who refers to the team that you have. And that means that from the president all the way down to the frontline people, everybody should internalize quality, perform at a level of quality, and have your entire team perform at a level of quality as well. And finally, the when, which usually has two outlets. The when addresses when to start and when to finish. To those two outlets, the answers have as follows. When to start? The answer is now. When to finish? Never. Remember what we said before? It's a marathon with an unknown finish line. It is a journey. It is a continuous process. So that addresses the what, why, how, who, and when. And that is what we do in order to make sure that we implement quality properly at all levels in an organization. Now, quality addresses many areas, but three are the most important that most quality gurus talk about, and that is waste in your business, defects, and efficiency. Again, waste, when you waste product, time, materials, and their energy and their like, okay? Defects, that you send a product, let's say, to a customer, the customer returns it because it's not proper. And efficiency, how to improve efficiency. Those are the three main things that quality usually addresses. And we aim for 0 defects, 0 waste, and 100%, if not more, efficiency. Okay, so from now on, for the rest of the presentation, we'll try to address these 3 main elements. Okay, now, how do we achieve quality usually is the question. Quite a few gurus over the centuries, actually over the thousands of years, ladies and gentlemen, have spoken and said extensively things about quality. I said over the thousands of years because I've been dealing with the concept of quality throughout my entire academic career. And as you heard from Christopher, I've been a professor for 42 years. I've devoted my entire life to academia. However, coming from a Greek background, I had the opportunity to study ancient philosophers, and I said a minute ago that quality has been recorded on the books for thousands of years because ancient Greek philosophers and others, not only Greek, Chinese philosophers, Indian philosophers, and others have dealt with the concept of quality over the years. However, in academia around the world nowadays, they refer to these 7 quality gurus. You only see 6 here. I'll present a 7th in a moment. And these people are known for something extraordinary that they did about quality. I'm not going to refer to what each and every one of them did. That could be a whole presentation because each of them has different and unique ideas about how to achieve quality, but they all aim towards the same goal. The one, however, that I'm going to spend a little time is the next one, the 7th quality guru, who happened to be my professor, my trainer, basically, not professor at the university. I attended several of his presentations in the early 80s. And basically, he was one of the reasons that I loved quality. I fell in love with quality and I followed it, and that is Edward Deming. I don't know how much you know about Deming. If you don't, Please take the name down and Google it at a later time. It is worthwhile to know who Deming was and what he did. In short, let me just say the following. Deming was a statistician, academician, professor in the east part of USA in the 40s and 50s. Now, you got to consider the time that we're talking about, okay? 40s, after World War II, 50s, when America basically was not involved in the war as much, okay, was flourishing in many ways in production and output in general. And those big companies, whether you're talking about automobile companies, clothier companies, food companies, and the like, they were producing and they were producing a lot because there was demand, not only in America, but also around the world. More specifically, some of you may know the Marshall Plan, where America was helping countries around the world that were hurt and had suffered from the war, the Second World War. So here are the companies in America producing different things. Let's say clothes. If the clothes were of quality, they were consuming them in the American market. If the clothes had, let's say, a minor defect, it was placed aside and it was sent to countries like Poland, Czech Republic, Greece, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, and a few other countries that had been hurt by the war and they needed food, clothing, and other supplies. So when Deming was screaming his head off to the various companies that were not paying attention to quality, they were not listening to him, because whether they produce a good product or a bad, the good product was sold in America, the bad was sent to another country. They were delighted to have, let's say, a jacket, even with one sleeve being a little longer than the other. Yeah, to the American market, that's a defect. But to someone who never had a jacket in the countries that I mentioned before, obviously that was a blessing, so they loved it. And they didn't care about the one sleeve being an inch or two longer than the other. Actually, that's a defect, okay? For the American market, but for them it was good. So long story short, he was screaming his head off about perform at a level of quality, because in the long run, we're gonna have problems. And these big company owners were saying, Professor, what do you know? You're only an academician. So they didn't listen to him. So what he did, he packed and went to Japan. In Japan, he started talking about quality. Now remember, Japan was one of the losers of World War II, right? So now there was an American, there was somebody who knew certain things about production, who came to them from a country that was a superior country. So all they did, folks, they listened. That's all they did. They listened to him. And what did he say to them? Perform at a level of quality, and in the long run, you'll be ahead. Well, that was in the late 50s, early 60s. Excuse me. I think we all know what happened to the automobile industry and how the Japanese automobile industry outperformed the American automobile industry in the 60s and 70s. And that was simply because we discarded and disregarded quality, but the Japanese believed in it. Deming is famous for a very simple technique that he followed. He said, plan, do, study, and act. Plan to do something, go on and do it, study how well you did, see if there's room for improvement, and then act on it, and then start all over again. So there was a vicious circle, in essence, that he was suggesting and following the PDSA. He also said, let people dream. Tell them how they're going to enjoy the benefits of quality at the end of the process in the long run. And in his concept of let people dream, he used something very similar to what I'll present to you now. In this example, folks, which is very similar to what he trained me on back in the 70s, he had different pictorials though. The assumption here is that you are vacationing in this village, in this island, in this place, and you know of a nice resort area that is around this mountain. Okay. Obviously, you're vacationing in this village here, in this place, but the best resort is around the mountain. So one day you go down to the port. Here's the pictures that you have seen about it. So that's where you're at. And these are the pictures that you have seen. So now you want to go there because you are dreaming about it. Remember what Deming said? Dream about a goal and you will achieve it. So now, given that you have this in mind, you go down to the port, you take the boat to go to this place. Okay, are you with me? I hope you are. So when you take the boat and the captain comes up to you and says, hi, folks, how you doing? Are you going to this resort place? And of course, you start the conversation with the captain, let's presume. Okay, now, what do you want to ask the captain? How many lifesavers the boat has? How many horsepower the engine is? How fast the boat goes? What's the capacity of the boat? Do you really care about those things? It's nice to know that it has a good engine. It's nice to know that, those are the basics, and you want to know that the boat will take you there, okay? But you're not interested in those things. What you're interested in and what you want the captain to talk to you about, folks, is this. This is the goal that you have. This is what Deming said. Let people dream of the benefits of quality, and in the long run, they will be fine. Dream about this place, and achieving it and going it and visiting it is your ultimate objective there. Well, another thing that we need to pay attention, folks, is what an organization called Gallup did. I don't know if you know the Gallup organization. It is another global organization, just like the one that I mentioned a little while ago, the ACE and Nielsen ratings. This is another global organization that observes how companies perform around the world, and they come up with statistics. They give a report. So now you look at what happens, so you probably try to improve. In this analysis, research and analysis that they did, they looked into the concept of engagement in business. In other words, are people engaged, or are they there just to do their daily tasks, collect a check, and go? So the level of engagement was what the company looked into, and they identified three categories. The engaged ones, who basically are people who are positive and enthusiastic about the company. They contribute to the company. They participate to the things that the company wants to do, and they're team players. They're there to give plenty to the company, not only their 5 hours or 8 hours of work per day, but also part of their own well-being, their own time, and they contribute. They're positive thinkers. The next category that they found was the ones that are disengaged. They're not engaged, in other words. And these people are indifferent. They don't care. They'll do minimal work. They're apathetic, and they're there to collect a check. They work, let's say, 9 to 5, 5:01 in the afternoon, they pack and go. My day's over. I did what I had to do. I don't care anymore. And they depart. So we have two categories so far, engaged and disengaged. But they also found another category, the actively disengaged people. And they're the ones who are negative towards the company. They don't care. and the first opportunity they find, they're out of there. They have their resume ready, and they're looking to go to another company, and they're just there to do minimal work and collect a paycheck. Okay. Now, obviously, these three categories represent 100% of the workforce. By the way, this analysis was done to 8,500 companies around the world. So if you're part of an organization, university, usually as we have today, or any other company, you fall within this research and analysis. What is interesting, folks, is the percentages that they found that represent these three categories. If you want to take a look, a guess, be my guest, but you're in for a big surprise, my friends. Engaged, 30%. Disengaged, 50%. Actively disengaged, 20%. So basically what this means, folks, is that 70%, 70% of the workforce in companies, on the average, not specifically, on the average, 70% are somehow either disengaged or actively disengaged. So do you think it would be a good task, a good assignment for you to bring engagement to your company? Get people to be engaged in what the company does? Being engaged, you have plenty, stupendous benefits that both the company and the employees may enjoy. And we can talk about this at a later time. So let's try to move on with more essentials to quality. There are three things that these quality gurus, the 7 quality gurus that I mentioned earlier, 6 on one screen, and then the 7th was Edward Deming, and that is what the Japanese called Muda, Mura, and Muri. However, it is important that we also look into Henry Ford's philosophy. And I have a story to share with you, a story between Henry Ford and the Japanese. But let's first of all look into Henry Ford's philosophy, and then we'll take a look at the Japanese philosophy. Then we'll talk about the 5 S's. There are certain attributes that we'll examine, things that we need to look into, and their name begins with a letter S. That's why they named them as 5 S's. And then we'll talk about what is a visual organization, the significance of it. And of course, accuracy and precision is the final thing that we'll talk about today. So, Muda means waste. Muda is in Japanese. Waste comes in many different ways. And I identified, actually, no, I borrowed. I did not identify this. I borrowed terminology from others. And if you take the initials of the 8 common ways that we have, it gives you trim wood. So you can remember, as just like we do when we trim, see, look at that. You trim wood to make it look good, effective, workable, usable, okay? So trim wood. Now, what does T, R, I, M, W, O, O, and D stand for? Is my next step. And yet, I have not forgotten the story that I promised you between Henry Ford and the Japanese. It's a very interesting one. Bear with me for a moment. Let me just cover this, and I'll get to that slide in a moment. So, T stands for transportation. When you transport things from one workstation to another, when you go from one desk to another, you are transporting that may be eliminated or at least minimized. So transportation is one of the wastes that we have in business. Then utilizing resources inefficiently, ineffectively. You let the water run for a while, for instance, and that is a waste. Inventory. Here, folks, let me take a second to explain the significance of inventory, and I have in a parenthesis the word liability. For the ones who know accounting, and I am dealing with academicians today and universities, yes, inventory is one of the company's assets. As a matter of fact, in a balance sheet, it is shown under short-term assets along with cash and equivalent. And it's an asset. Well, if it's an asset, why am I showing it as liability? From the accountant's point, here's the distinctions. From the accountant's point of view, folks, inventory, yes, is an asset. However, from the company's efficiency point of view, inventory kept in your company is a liability because you have the money that you paid for the materials, the money that you spend to store, insure, protect, and carry the inventory, and all that creates liabilities. All that creates expenses. All that creates an outflow. So that is part of the waste that we classify inventory as such if you maintain inventory in your business. Motion has to do with people moving back and forth from one area to another. Just like the transportation of inventories, you may have individuals, people who are moving left and right all the time. I can give you example from the cleaners that I had, the dry cleaners that I had, where motion was one of the biggest wastes, and I rearranged the equipment around so the movement, the people movement would be minimized and productivity and efficiency improved immensely. Then we have the waiting. When you wait for a file to arrive to your desk, when you wait for a product or a working process to arrive to your workstation, waiting is also another waste. Overproduction, producing more than what you actually need. Many companies say, produce all these products so we can have them. So when the customers come in, we'll have the product so we satisfy the customers. Yeah, that's one mentality. That's one philosophy, and I can see its value. However, from the inventory efficiency point of view and from the qualities point of view, overproduction is another waste because, as you'll see further down, we have a system called just-in-time, and we'll explain that in a moment. So there's no need for overproduction or overprocessing, doing something over and over and over. In the dry cleaners that I mentioned, I had a seamstress and a person who was pressing shirts and other garments, and that person was doing this over and over and over again. And when I inspected and checked, why are you doing this multiple times? Well, I wanted to be perfect, okay? Well, it was good the first time around, the first time the person did it. He or she did not have to do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and that's over processing. And finally, you have defects. Any defect that needs rework, reshaping, costs money because you need to inspect it, you need to identify it, and you need to send it back to production again, back to the cleaners. Many times, at least not many times, sometimes people were not paying attention on pressing pens, and they were giving to the pens a second crease. Well, you don't want to have multiple creases on your pens. You only want to have one. So if a pair of pens had double creases because of the bad pressing, that was a defect, had to be reworked, and that is a waste. We can talk about this more extensively some other time, but let's cover Mura and Muri. And Mura refers to variability, and Muri refers to stress, okay? Variability means producing the same product, the same service every time the customer requests for it. They don't want to see different product, different type of service. They come in for the service that you promised that you're going to provide. They come in for the product that you said you can deliver. make sure that every time the product or the service is identical. Moody has to do with the stress that people go through. And if people are overworked, if people are having mental issues, if people are having issues at home or societal and others, it will definitely affect their performance. And chances are that quality might decline. Here is, in terms of variability, let's say that you go to an ice cream place for an ice cream. And this is, for the ones who know, here in America, a banana split, right? So you go there, you ask for a banana split, and that's what you get. Oh, you liked it, so you go there next time. But next time you see something like that. I don't know if you're going to like this more than the first one, but it's different. And the third time you see this. Now, I don't know if this is an enhanced ice cream serving, or if you like it better than the second or first, but you went back because of the initial, this one, ice cream that you received the first time around. But second time was different, third time was different. Now, look at the fourth time. Is it better? I don't know, but it's different. Do you like it? I don't know. Fifth time, sixth time. What I'm getting to is that by providing variability, you provide some type of uncertainty to the customer, because the customer now says, what will I get today? I don't know. So you're better off providing a standardized product all the time. Let's take another example out of a hamburger, out of an eatery, a restaurant. You go and you order a double hamburger, and then this is what you get. Okay. You go there the next time, and that's what you get. And the third time, you get something like this. Now, again, variability. I don't know how many of you will probably say that it's fine, but in most cases, it's not, especially, and of course, with food, you might say that you like these two hamburgers instead of one because you're hungry and you want to fill your tummy, whatever, okay? But with products, you want to have the same identical product day in and day out. Back to this example, wouldn't it be a lot more convincing if you knew that when I ask for a double hamburger, this is what I get all the time? Every time I go there, I get the same identical product, and there's no variability. Now, if you like something else, go on and order two different hamburgers like the pictorial has on the top right, for instance. But variability is a killer in quality, a killer of quality. Same thing holds true, folks, with a dry cleaners, which is a business that I owned, okay? 50-some employees, 3 different cleaners in the area and so on, okay? So I can talk about this. And sometimes dry cleaners present your pressed shirts like that, some others like that, or like that, okay? Now, do you really want that much variability? Wouldn't it be nice if they all were the same? So you go there, and that is what you expect, that is what you get time in and time out. So again, variability causes irregularity, and of course, customers lose trust in the company's product or service. And of course, Moody, as we said, is stress. If a person is stressed, chances are that he or she might make mistakes, he or she might produce a defect product, he or she might produce a reduced level of quality, and you don't want that. So as a manager, you have a responsibility to identify both Mura, variability, and Moody, stress of your employees. Well, now let's go to Henry Ford, and soon I'm going to share the story that I have for you about Henry and the Japanese. Henry Ford, folks, is the one who came up with the idea of can-do, C-A-N-D-O. C stands for clean up, A stands for arrange, N stands for neat, maintain things neatly. D is discipline people, and discipline people in the form of organize, not penalize them. And finally, O stands for ongoing improvement. I mention this because when Henry Ford started his automobile company, that was one of the things that they had in his operational manual, and everybody had to abide by can do. Everybody was responsible to clean up his or her place, arrange things properly so you know where they are at all times, have them neatly presented and kept, be disciplined about what you were doing, showing up on time, taking your breaks on time, coming back on time, staying, the proper time, and of course, continuously try to improve. That was his main philosophy. And that is what made Henry Ford Automobile Company in the early years of his career and establishment a very successful company. Over the years, however, many of his managers forgot about this standard that he established along with a few others. By the way, the can do, the Japanese took it and came up with the 5 S's. You see here 5 elements, CANDO. Okay, well, the Japanese came up with 5 elements also, and they called them the 5 S's. When Deming went there and taught them they can do, they modified them to sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And they came up with a famous concept of 5 S's. Now, 5 S's basically is what you need to follow, or Henry Ford's can do, or the Japanese 5 S's if you want to have a world-class company, if you want to have quality at all times. Sort, obviously proper arrangement, sort them properly, right? Straighten out, set them in order. Shine, clean up, polish, standardize, okay, have a standard procedure. And of course, sustain. Remember what you said, continuous improvement? Basically the same concept, same idea. They just modified it to their terminology and their presentation. And I have some pictorials now to identify the sort, straighten, shine, standardize, and sustain. Okay, for instance, here's a workplace which is not sorted properly, and this is part of the sorting that we're talking about, before and after, if you will. Here's another setting for before and after. Here is set in order, a bookcase. Look how the books are. How can you find what you want, what you need, as opposed to, look at this one. So now you set them in order. You probably classify them by subject. You possibly classify them by category, whatever category, short books, tall books, and so on, okay? Whatever you want, business books, English books, literacy books, chemistry books, and the like. Shine, look at the left, the before and after, or that BMW for before and after. So maintain your place and items, tools, shined, clean, in other words. And of course, visual organization has to do with having a pictorial, in this case, of the tools that you're using. In the center of this picture, you see a hammer, okay? I hope you do. Do you see the hammer right there? Okay, in the center of the picture. Now, if somebody took that picture, that hammer to use, that's what that tableau would look like. The hammer is missing. And what we suggest is, here's on the next pictorial, we have all the different types of ranges. And then what we suggest is have a form under that tableau that shows where is the item that's missing. So who is using that hammer, for instance? Station number 5. Good. Now, who is using it? Anthony is using it. Good, Anthony. And what time is Anthony to return it? So that form should be there so you know where the tool is, who is using it, and by what time we'll be back in case you need to use it yourself so you know what time to expect it, okay? So here now, I hope you see two tools, two ranges here, and two over here are missing, okay? So somebody had to fill in these forms. Now, speaking of visual organizations, and still, I haven't forgotten what I promised you about Henry Ford and the Japanese, okay? Bear with me. So let's get this out of the way. Now, the purpose of a visual organization, folks, is to easily identify a problem area. How many times you have gone to a grocery store and you see a cashier's light over and above the cashier flashing red? That means to the manager, I have a problem. I need something. Come over and help. It could be change. It could be whatever the case may be. But once they have a problem, they flip the switch on. So now the light above them flashes. So now the manager visually can identify and determine that there's a problem there. Let's go there instead of screaming, instead of calling or whatsoever. So a visual organization helps solve problems faster. And of course, it makes the problems visible. It simplifies the workflow of the employees and identifies the targets for improvement. And that is the light that I'm talking about. Here in the States, by the way, we're using this in our mailing of our correspondence. Here's a mailbox, and the handler, that grayish white thing, is down, but with this one, it's up. The mailman or mailwoman now knows that there is mail in there to be picked up and delivered. When the handler is up, usually it's an indication that there is mail in there for the mailman to pick it up. Okay, so we have this visual way of communicating in order to avoid waiting out there for the mailman to come in and hand them the letters that you want to mail, for instance. Here are some other techniques that we have. Pokayoki. Again, we are quote unquote and forced folks to apply or mention the Japanese philosophy because after Deming went there, they went crazy about quality and they developed their own philosophy, not necessarily their own, but their own terminology about the philosophy of quality. So now one of them is what they call Pokayoki, Kaizen, KPIs, just-in-time, and optimization. Pokayoki refers to defect-free, mistake-proofing. When you try to plug in, let's say, a plug into an outlet, and the plug has 3 outlets there, obviously it does not fit to all of them. And here's the example. Or when you try to plug a USB into your computer, it can only go in a certain way. If you flipped it over, it will not go in. If you force it, it's going to destroy the USB and the data that you have there. So to avoid problems, to avoid destroying the information you have in the USB, it only goes in a certain way. Here's what I was telling you about a plug, okay? Or here's another one. People, by the way, were trying to put gasoline in their car, and many times they either forgot the valve on the top of the car and left, or used their own type of gas to their car. And if you put diesel, folks, in a car that burns only gasoline or benzene or benzene, as we call it, you're going to have issues. And basically, here's what they did. They made the hose of the diesel a lot thicker and bigger, so it will not fit into a gasoline, benzene car. Or for the tap of your gasoline tank, they put the key there, and the key cannot come out until the tap is placed in the tap, until you close the item there. Okay, so they have certain controls in order to avoid mistakes, in order to avoid pouring the wrong fluid into your car. Kaizen has to do with continuous improvement. Here's the Japanese terminology that they use, Kaizen. Kai means change, Zen means good. Okay, continuously make it good, continuous improvement. Well, Henry Ford mentioned it. The 6 quality gurus that I presented to you earlier, they all believe in continuous improvement. However, now the Japanese are using their own terminology and they call it Kaizen. Okay. Kaizen deals with setting the level of expected quality and then perform at it, reduce costs, and meet the levels of productivity that you want. KPIs, folks, the key performance indicators, is an American discovery, more or less, or utilization, where basically we say there are certain indicators that tell us how we are going. For instance, if you're, let's say you have a restaurant and you're concerned with food and beverage cost, and the beverage cost, say, in a given month was 20%, which is normal. But next month, it went up to 25. Now you have an indicator that the costs increased. What happened? And now you need to look into how and why. So KPIs, key performance indicators, tell you how you are performing in a given area. And of course, the reverse holds true if the beverage cost went down. What did you do right the next month for the cost to go down? Can you continue doing that? Okay. So KPIs are nothing else but observable, recorded, tangible, and quantifiable elements that predict behavior and tell you how you're doing. They're much meaningful because you assess the current situation, you set a goal, you implement your goal, and you repeat the process. I'm getting questions here about the story that I want to show you. Okay, here's, tell us a story, this person says. And the other one says, yes, we want to hear it. Okay, before we move on to just in time then, which is another element about quality, let me refer to the story that I promised you about Ford company, the Ford mentality, and the Japanese philosophy. Remember, Ford company has been in operation for many, many decades. In the 80s, after Deming went to Japan, taught them quality, they internalized quality and they started performing at a level of quality. The American automobile industry started suffering because the Japanese cars were more economical, they were less costly, and they required less maintenance. They required less gasoline. America was still producing, most of the times, the 8-cylinder big American cars, the Cadillacs, the Fords, the Buicks, the Oldsmobiles, and most of them, the Chryslers, okay? And most of them were 8 cylinders. When you have an 8-cylinder engine, you consume much more gasoline than a 4-cylinder, which is basically what most of the Japanese cars had. They sent them to America, they flooded the American market, and now the American automobile industry started suffering. At some point, the people at Ford said, what are these Japanese people doing that's hurting us so badly? Why are they selling cars so much and we are not? So they decided to send a group of people to Japan to find out what they were doing. So a delegation now from Detroit, Ford headquarters, goes to Japan. And they started asking questions. And the Japanese told them, we follow the Bible. And the American delegation said, what? The Bible? What does the Bible have to do with production? Production of automobiles? Well, we follow the Bible, they said. So now the Americans got even more eager. What is the Bible? How can you show us the verse out of a Bible that says something about production of automobiles? And they kept on saying, we follow the Bible. So the Americans said, can we see the Bible? Are you ready? They showed them Ford's manual. They had taken Ford's manual, and along with Deming's philosophy of quality, they applied the things that ultimately beat the American automobile industry, while the Ford people in Detroit and other parts of America where they were producing cars, they were looking into cutting costs, minimizing expenses. And of course, that had an effect on quality. They did not try to adjust to the current needs of the 80s, late 70s and 80s, and that is how they lost the market. But the funny thing here, folks, is that the Japanese followed what they called the Bible, and the Bible was Henry Ford's manual. Amazing story. It's true. If you go into Ford's biographies and the history of the company, you will read that in there as well. And it's an amazing, amazing story. In closing this concept here, just-in-time is another item that quality believes in. And just-in-time, folks, minimizes inventory and says, bring the inventory in at the time that's needed, so you don't need to maintain any large quantities, because maintaining large quantities of inventory. Oh, I see comments here. Oh, I love the story. Here's okay. Christopher, what's the question? I can see it right here, and my assistant just left for a few minutes. So if you can state the question, or even if you want to speak it to me, I'll be delighted to address it. There's a question that I cannot read here. Anyway, so obtaining the inventory the time that you need it instead of maintaining it, which costs money. Inventory, as we said, is a liability. Maybe an asset for the accountants, but it's a liability for the optimization. And this now leads us to the last item that we have for the day, quality through optimization. Folks, quite a few quality people, managers and others in various companies, economists and others say, maximize profits, minimize costs. To me, that's a kind of awkward. How can you maximize? Here's the chat. 1 second. Let's see. What's the question here? Oh, I see. It's just in case they have any questions. All right. If they have any questions, Chris, please show them in the chat. Thank you. So my point here, folks, is how can you possibly maximize output by utilizing minimum input? I don't think that those two go well together. However, economists and others go for it. They push it, they promote it, and they try to train people on it. Well, let me give you a quick example, folks. If you maximize a car's performance of a car's odometer or speedometer, let's say, shows 140 miles per hour. You get on the highway and you go 140 miles an hour from the moment you start until your destination. Do you think you're going to reach your destination if you push the car to maximum 140 miles an hour? I don't think so. You will probably burn it. And a few miles down the line, you're going to have all the different types of issues and problems, and you're going to see pistons and other things flying left and right because you try to maximize the output. However, if you try to optimize, as we preach, as we believe, and you ran the car, let's say, at 60 miles per hour, okay, or 100 kilometers per hour, you can go to your destination and come back. Use optimum instead of maximum. That same concept may be applicable to employees. Maximize employees' output by having them work extensive hours. How long can they do that? Not for very long. Soon enough, they're going to collapse. Soon enough, they're going to have problems if you work them 10, 12, 15 hours a day. But that's maximum. And I'm paying them minimum. I'm not paying them any overtime or whatsoever. So no, that's not going to work. So the maximum, minimum, optimum theory basically is the one that says work with identify the optimum, define it, and work with it. And in the long run, you'll be okay. Folks, I hope you learned something today. And if you follow these principles or concepts or techniques that we talked about today, you will have a profitable business, a profitable department, and your employees will be happy. You will have loyalty in your company, loyalty between employees and the company, loyalty between clients and the company, and of course, the societal benefits and everything else that we mentioned would be the result of it. I'm going to stick around for more questions. Okay, here's one question. Is the can-do, okay, let me read the question. Is the can-do of Ford basically the same with the 5 S's of the Japanese, they say? And the answer is yes. As I mentioned earlier, I think I did, basically the Japanese modified the can-do of Ford to the 5 S's that we mentioned, okay? Let me exit the screen sharing and see if we have any other questions here from our audience. Oh, here's another question. Why should a company be concerned with societal benefit due to quality? Okay, good question. Well, folks, the societal benefit is what we said keeps the business open. You don't see that we're closed, we're moving someplace else. People are using the company, are working at the company, they're making money, they buy other products, services, so the whole economy, the whole neighborhood now flourishes. Let's see what other questions do we have here. Where can we find information about the quality gurus? Email me or email the organization that you're registered at, and I'll be delighted to send you information on the quality gurus. They are all over the web. They are on the internet. You can very well search for them by name, but I can send you information on them as well. Well, somebody else is asking here, is the PDSA of damage the same as the PDCA? Well, the PDCA instead of SA was discovered or set by Walter Schuhard, and C stands for check instead of study, basically same concept. Any other questions? It's a statement here. I find the Gallup percentages extraordinary and and disappointing. Wow. Yeah. If 70% of the people are disengaged, yeah, it is disappointing. I don't see any more questions. Anybody? Anything? Well, Christopher, if we don't have any more questions, might as well, let me just say thank you to all of our audience from wherever they are around the world. I know we have the Central Asian countries and universities that we project to today, but we also have other attendees from other parts of the world as well. And I'd like to thank all of them for participating in today's presentation. By the way, next week, a week from today, if you like what you saw today, in a week from today, I have another presentation. And at that time, you folks are going to enjoy many of the concepts that I personally have developed over the years. And that will be a very innovative and creative concept. You're going to see the concept for next week is an alternative mode of doing business. Okay, let me just say briefly, we're accustomed to certain things that managers, economists, and others have been teaching us over the years, and we've been following things that in many cases may be counterproductive, possibly even catastrophic. I've identified those things as well, and I'll bring them up, and I will also show you what the other side of the coin has, meaning the complement, meaning how to correct, how to avoid, first of all, and then correct the wrongdoing that we've been accustomed to and we're following for a number of years. So next week, you're going to see an alternative mode to doing business, a different way, a more effective and efficient way of doing business. With that, thank you again. Thank you all for attending. Have a lovely day.
Thank you for a fine presentation.